Hey, welcome to Draft Academy. My name is Mike. In this tutorial, I want to talk to you guys about using if statements in Java. And an if statement is a structure inside of Java which we can use to help our programs to make decisions. So I can create an if statement and it'll allow my program to respond to different situations. So when one situation occurs, our program can do one thing, and when another situation occurs, our program can do another thing. And believe it or not, you actually use if statements in your everyday life. So as a human being, you're constantly encountering these different if statements. So I want to show you some examples. I have over here this text file, and it has some examples of if statements that a lot of people would encounter every day. So here's one. It says, I wake up, if I'm hungry, I eat breakfast. So over here we have this condition, right? The condition is basically saying, if I'm hungry. If that condition is true, in other words, if you're hungry, then you'll go ahead and eat breakfast. But if this condition up here is false, then you're not hungry, so you're not going to eat breakfast, so you'll just skip over this guy and move on. Here's another one. It says, I look at my phone. If it's about to die, I charge it. So again, we have this condition up here. It says, if it's about to die. If that condition's true, then we're going to charge the phone. If that condition's false, we're just going to skip over this and we're not going to charge it, right? So those are two basic if statements. I have a couple other ones over here. These ones are a little bit more complicated. It says, I leave my house. If it's cloudy, I bring an umbrella. Otherwise, I bring sunglasses. So here we have this condition, if it's cloudy. If that condition is true, then we bring an umbrella. Otherwise, if that condition is false, then we bring sunglasses. And so here we have this extra little word here, otherwise, and basically this just means that if this condition's false up here, then we're just gonna bring the sunglasses. And then finally we have one down here which is even more complex. It says, I'm at a restaurant. If I want meat, I order steak. Otherwise, if I want pasta, I order spaghetti and meatballs. Otherwise, I order a salad. So here we have two different conditions we're checking. The first is if I want meat. If that's true, then they get a steak. Otherwise, we're gonna check this other condition down here where we're gonna check to see if we want pasta. If that's true, then we get the pasta. Otherwise, we get a salad. So these are four different if statements, and I'm gonna show you guys how we can create something like this inside of our Java programs. So just like you or I would make a decision like this, our Java programs can also make decisions using things similar to this called if statements. So I'm going to go back over to my app.java file, and in here we're going to create an if statement. The first thing I want to do is create a variable, and we're going to create a Boolean variable, and this is going to be called isMale. And basically this variable is going to tell us whether or not someone is a male. So in my case, I am a male, so why don't we set this equal to true. So now we have a Boolean variable called isMale, and it has a value of true. Let's say that in our program, if the person was male, we wanted to do something, and if they weren't male, we wanted to do something else. Well, I can create an if statement which will allow us to decide something like that. So I can say if, and I'm going to make an open and closed parentheses and an open and closed curly bracket. Inside of this parentheses, I can put a condition. So if you remember in those if statements we looked at before, we had certain conditions like if I'm hungry, if it's raining, if I want meat. In here, we can put our condition. In our case, we want to check to see if the person's male. So I can just say is male. And really, all you need inside of these parentheses is a true or a false value. And if the value inside the parentheses is true, then we're going to execute the code that we put inside of these curly brackets. If this is false, we're just going to move on. So I'm going to put some code in here, which say system.out.println, and I'm just going to print out you are male, right? Because we know for a fact that if this variable is true, then they are a male. So let's go over and we'll run this program, and you'll see that it says you are male. And that's because this isMale variable is true. If I was to change this to false, however, let's say I changed isMale to false. Now, we're not going to print out you are male because the person isn't male. Let's say that we wanted to do something though if the person wasn't male, so we wanted to do something else. I can use a keyword in Java called else. And what this will do is the code inside of the else block will execute whenever the condition up here is false. So I'm going to say else, and down here we'll just print something out. So we can just say you are not male, right? So now, since isMale is equal to false, this is going to tell us that. It's going to say, yeah, you're not a male. But if I set isMale equal to true, then we're going to say you are a male. So what we're doing in this program is we're allowing our program to respond to the value of a variable, right? My program is now smart enough to respond to isMale, right? So if the person's male, my program can respond to that. If they're not male, my program can also respond to that. So my program just got smarter, and it's also able to make a decision. We can actually take this a step further too. So what I want to do is create another variable up here. So I'm going to add another variable into the mix. It's going to be Boolean. It's going to be called isTall, and I'm going to set this equal to true. So now we have two variables, and I can actually use both of these variables inside of my if statement. So let's say that I want to do something when the person is both tall and a male. Well, I can come over here inside of this if statement, and I can say if isMale, and then I can use a special operator in Java called the AND operator. So I can say if isMale and isTall. And what this is going to do is this is only going to be true when the person is both male and tall. So if one of these guys is false, in other words, if they're either not a male or not tall or neither male nor tall, the code inside of here isn't going to execute. So in here, we'll change this to be you are male, you are a tall male. And then down here, we can put you are either not male, not tall, or both. So we know for a fact if this code is getting executed that they're not male, or they're not tall, or they're just not either. So both of these are set to true. So when we run this program, it's going to say you are a tall male. But let's say that I change the isMale variable to false, right? So here we would have someone who's not male but is also tall. Now I can save this program, and when I run it, it's going to say you are either not male, not tall, or both. So the program is responding to these two different variables. And so here we're able to print something out when the person is male and tall, but we can also use another operator in Java, which is called the OR operator. And so instead of saying and, we can just say or. And so what this is going to say is if the person is male or the person is tall, then we want to do something. So unlike when we use that and, where both of these had to be true, now only one of these has to be true. So if I was to put isMale equal to false and isTall equal to true, now it's going to execute the code inside of this first block. So it'll say you are a tall male. So obviously I would have to change the text inside of here to match what we're actually doing. But that's what OR does. It basically allows you to put two things inside of here, and as long as one of them is true, then the whole thing is going to be true. But if both of them are false, then the whole thing's going to be false. So I'm going to put this back to and I want to show you guys how we can make these even more complex. So here we're checking to see if the person is male and is tall. But what if we wanted to do something when the person was male, but when they were not tall? So if we're dealing with a situation where we had a male who wasn't tall, I can create another condition down here using something called an else if. So we're just going to type in else if, and then an open and close parentheses and an open and close curly bracket, and I'm just going to click enter. So here I have another thing which is else if. So I can actually check another condition. So here we can say is male, and we want to check to see if they're not tall. So I can use this exclamation point, and I can say is tall. And what this exclamation point does is it basically negates whatever is over here. So if is tall is equal to true, this exclamation point will give us the opposite. And if is tall is equal to false, this exclamation point will give us the opposite of that, which is true. So I'm checking to see if somebody isn't tall, right? But we need two true values inside of here. So if is tall is false and I use this exclamation point on it, that'll make it true. Hopefully that makes sense. This exclamation point basically just takes the opposite of whatever is over here. So in this case, we would have a situation where someone is a male, but they're actually short. So I'm gonna copy this and we can paste this in, and it says you are a short male, right? Because they're a male, but they're not tall. I can actually include one more situation. So there's one more situation we need to cover, which is when we have someone who is tall, but isn't male. So I'm gonna make another else if. I'll just say else if. And over here, I'm gonna put that last condition. So this would be when they're not a male and they are tall. So this would just be like, you are not a male, but are tall. So now I'm able to cover every possible situation. So if the person is both male and tall, I can cover that. If they're male and not tall, I can cover that. If they're not male and tall, I can cover that. And if they're not male and not tall, I can cover this. And so actually down here, we would say you are not male and not tall, because we know for a fact that they're neither of them. So let's see how this works. I'm gonna go ahead and run this program. And right now, we'll just start it off with both of these equal to true. So is male is true and is tall is equal to true. And our program will tell us you're a tall male. If I make is male false, then our program will respond to that. So it'll say you are not a male, but are tall. If I make is male true and is tall false, it'll respond to that as well. It'll say you are a short male. If I make both of these false, it'll be able to respond to that. So it'll say you are not a male and not tall. So this is the basics of using if statements. We can use Boolean values like is male and is tall, and we can check to see if different conditions are true. Now there's also another way that we can put conditions in here, which is by comparing values. So I could compare one value to another, and if the comparison is true, so in other words, I could say like if 5 is greater than 3, then I would do something, otherwise I could do something else. And in the next video, I'm gonna talk all about using comparisons and comparison operators. But for now, this is the basics of if statements, and this is basically how you're gonna use them in your Java programs. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to Draft Academy to be the first to know when we release new content. Also, we're always looking to improve, so if you have any constructive criticism or questions or anything, leave a comment below. Finally, if you're enjoying Draft Academy and you want to help us grow, head over to draftacademy.com/contribute and invest in our future.